What advice would you give our students as they plan their studies and future endeavors in order to pursue a career like yours or in a related field?
So let me give you a couple of truisms, which are true for a reason. They may be trite, but they're true, and they're probably not too well observed. First is, I'm involved with a charter school in DC that deals with young kids in poor areas. And these kids start at pre-K, end up, we take them all the way through high school, and then see them through college. Their motto is, work hard, be nice. Pretty obvious. So first takeaway is, if that works for kids in those tough environments, that works for all of us. You can really work hard, be nice, and you're going to stand out. Secondly, a huge competitive advantage is if you listen. We all know that we all love to talk. We all have opinions. It's a rare person who listens. I work for a big company, and I was honored to be sitting in the boardroom, and one of the directors was George Shultz, who used to be Secretary of State. And there would be a raging debate among all the directors. He would be very quiet. And at the end of the debate, he would sum up very objectively, without any emotion, both sides, and say, I think this is what we should do. And that's what they did. He was a great listener, is a great listener. He's 95 years old now. The other thing I would say is, learn how to make decisions. You think it's easy, but it's extremely hard. The evidence is that we all make a lot of bad decisions, and we think we're doing it right. You got to do it analytically, and you got to do it non-analytically. And you got to learn from your mistakes and build up a sense of confidence in your decision-making ability, whether it's about your spouse, it's about your college, it's about your investment, whatever it is. Over time, you'll get a sense that you've done it well, and you'll be confident enough to make the next decision.
Thank you, John. I'm going to be very simple. I'm going to give you 3 I's and a CZ. So my 3 I's are intent, intuition, and integrity. Know what you want. Have an intent in your career. And that doesn't mean be so focused that you don't veer off the path when the opportunities present themselves, but live with an intent. Make decisions, as John said, with an intent. Follow your gut. There is no better guide for you than your intuition. It will be right 100% of the time. Learn to listen to your intuition and follow it. Live with integrity and make decisions. And this overlaps with what John said about being nice. Make sure that as you get into the world that you want to be in, that you can pass the red face test in the morning. That what you do can be on the front page of the Wall Street Journal and you can still hold your head high. Live with integrity. Make decisions with integrity. So intent, intuition, and integrity. And the last thing that I will tell you is get out of your comfort zone. Make yourself uncomfortable. I've lived all over the world by myself, the most uncomfortable thing I've ever done. I've jumped out of a plane, a little bit uncomfortable. But these things make me who I am today. These are all fabulous experiences that I wouldn't change for the world, and often are part of advancing my career. So get out of your comfort zone. 3 I's and a CZ.
How many of us are interested in what's going on politically today? Raise your hand. Yeah, so that's my passion. My suggestion to all of you is find your passion. I found my passion probably younger than all of you, and I decided that that was what I wanted to do, and it's what I do every single day. I participate in this crazy process. For me, it's like the Super Bowl when you have an election. So I suggest that you find that one thing that you're passionate about, maybe 2 things, and really take time, take effort, go outside of your comfort zone, as Linda said. Look for things that can teach you things that you're not going to learn in school. Find opportunities that you can actually work in. And from my perspective, it has been really interesting for me. I work with people, many of whom are in jobs that they find very boring. And they have to go to work, and they spend a lot of time, effort, and energy doing that. I have never had that feeling. Every day, I'm excited about the work I get to do. So my suggestion to all of you is find something that you're passionate about, learn as much as you can, be an expert, and work hard to achieve a distinguishable expertise that allows you to work in that field.
So I lend money to middle market companies, companies that make between 20 million and say $200 million in revenue. And you're constantly asking questions about product development and strategy and revenue and talking about profit margins and digging into the numbers. But at the end of the day, it always comes down to who's in charge, the management team, who the people are. It comes down to their character. And I think it's important, a lot of you guys are at the age where you're thinking about college and careers and your next steps. You guys are in a room right now with amazing people. And you're building amazing relationships right now that will come back and be very valuable to you. Your character is important today, right now. So be thinking about that all the time.
So it's hard to top the advice because it's exceptional advice. And I try to think a little bit about the next few years and going into college and what might be a little bit counterintuitive maybe to what you're hearing from others or even your parents. So a couple of maybe slightly more tactical but things that helped me along the way. One is we're living in a time of specialization. When I was at Shady Side, you could play 3 sports. Today I observed that you need to be in a club, you need to have a trainer to be exceptional at a sport. In the old days, you didn't take calculus for 2 years. Now, some people take calculus for 2 years. They go to AB, they go to BC, and they increasingly specialize and students are under a lot of pressure to decide what they want to do before they even go to college. I would encourage most of you, unless you really know in your heart, to think about having a more diverse set of experiences when you, both at Shady Side and when you go to college. What people don't realize today is studies of innovation, which is accelerating, show that most innovation doesn't come from a single idea. It comes from the interaction of disciplines and people who can bring those disciplines together creatively to solve problems. And I believe that taking risks in college and taking those classes that you might not normally take, being passionate about your focus area, but drawing from others is incredibly important. I'd encourage you because in college it's one of the few places you actually can take those risks and try new things. And so think about doing that. The other would be, you're the first generation of truly connected, digitally enabled people. We still used, rotary telephones and things that don't even exist today. We're going from a world where there are 2 billion connected people. In your next 6 years, there will be 6 billion connected people as technology allows people all over the world of all different means to get connected. I know your parents tell you not to spend as much time being connected. The reality is that's our world, and finding ways to continue to connect will only let you bring those ideas together, be more empathetic to different types of people, and make this a better place. Thank you.
Impacted your career path or life in general?
Apologies if you've heard this story before, but when we were seniors, a number of us really got into literature. It was like a brand new experience, and the whole world was opening up before us. And a teacher named John Hightower had arrived that year, and he just kind of lit the match. But he was the catalyst. We had been prepped in years before by a number of teachers. And the thing that happened to us at the end of that year, a couple of us, about 5 of us, said, we can't let this stop. This is too rich. So we went to our parents and said, look, can you pay for us to have a session a week with Professor Hightower? And they said, sure. And we did that. We do a book a week. We were into Shakespeare big time. We were into, Faulkner and Hemingway and F. Scott. And we were a diverse group of 5 people. We can't remember who started it, but it was one of the great examples of following your passion. A couple of us ended up in the business world. A guy became a dean of Carnegie Mellon Computer Science. Another person was a doctor. We got a professor of English out of it. And to me, it captured Shady Side Academy because that was the platform from which all this happened. Thank you.
Shady Side in general changed my life more than you could imagine. And there were two teachers here that had a major impact. One was Dr. Wood. She was a social studies instructor. And living in Europe, I really wish I had paid much more attention to what she was teaching. But the other was Mary Crowland, and I actually see her sitting in the audience today. And the reason these two instructors, these two teachers and coaches had such an impact on me was they didn't allow me to accept mediocrity. To be quite honest with you, a C in calculus was perfectly acceptable to me. I was happy with a C in calculus, but Mary Crowland was not. Dr. Wood was not, and they made me work extra hard. They saw potential in me, I guess, that at the time I didn't see in myself. And throughout my career, I have continued to have bosses that have done that same thing. And I'll tell you, there have been mornings that I've woken up and I didn't want to go to class, or I didn't want to go into work because these bosses were just riding my butt like you couldn't believe. But when I look back now, I learned more from them than from anybody else in my life. These people that ride you, that see something in you that you may not even see yourself, learn to recognize them, learn to understand why they're doing it, and learn to not accept mediocrity in yourself. And I think for these reasons, for my teachers, more years than I care to acknowledge, or these bosses that I've happened to have occasionally throughout my career, they have pushed me further than perhaps I'd ever been able to push myself.
Looking back, I too had a wonderful experience at Shady Side. It was a really important time in my life. I distinctly remember learning from Mr. Hendershot, and I believe he's still here as well, that I had a skill that I had to really hone. And we read all the books, and I really enjoyed the books, but he consistently made me speak to the class. And it's something that I've taken with me through college, law school, subsequently now actually in my spare time, I teach sometimes at Georgetown Business School. And the one thing that I've learned is I love to learn and I love to teach other people. Fortunately for me, I've worked for 4 CEOs during a very tumultuous time, and I've had to be able to kind of educate them on a topic that they're not as familiar about, but in a really non-condescending way. And I think I learned that first here at Shady Side. And it's something that I've taken with me throughout my life. I hope I get to say hi to Mr. Hendershot. But I do remember also we had a French teacher, Mr. McConnell, I don't believe he's here any longer. And he actually pushed me. He pushed me to use my language skills to learn a new language. I wasn't that interested in it. I didn't really like it. It didn't make sense to me. But he really pushed me hard, and frankly, that's been also quite helpful as I've had to deal with a lot of different types of people from different cultures throughout my career. And I think it's been really helpful to have those skills that I first got here. So from my perspective, take as much as you can, learn as much as you can. You're gonna take it with you in your life. And find those people that can actually teach you something that you really don't feel that comfortable doing. You can actually take it with you, and you will use it, I promise.
So this is an easy question for me. I think a lot of you have probably seen, and when you're logging onto something, you often have security questions that ask you or may send you a reminder of your password. And one of those questions is very commonly your favorite teacher. And I actually had to answer it this week, so it was pretty funny. It's been the same for many years. He always had a sense of humor in class. He always encouraged competition in class, which I think is still important, even though I might not be allowed to say that right now. And he also found a way to connect with his students outside the classroom. So there was something that he knew his students had a strong interest in. He'd find a way to interact with them on that point. And it's Mr. Felder.
Yeah, you're on my list too. because you were the one person that taught us that you could have humor and empathy and combine it with math, which I didn't think was actually possible. Every day had a bright moment where a joke or a funny comment or picking somebody up who was struggling with a particular part of the curriculum was just natural to him. I'd also call out Dr. Weil, who's not with us anymore, but he brought a level of science and technology to the school that literally rivaled colleges. We had an organic chemistry program here that was modeled on Pitt's college program. We had a lab due to the donations of lots of organizations that was better than the labs that I had at Brown, and he was in large part due to that. And then just the English department. I was never a fan of English, and I came to Shady Side as a sophomore. And just this eclectic group of Buddy Hendershot and Angela Irving and just the entire group served up this buffet of different authors and genres in a way that for the non-lover of English just made it interesting and got me, I think, onto a lifelong habit of enjoying all types of literature, fiction, nonfiction, etc. So I was getting bored about 7 years ago, and so I moved the family to Europe. We were there for 7 years. We just returned, did a lot of skiing, and then one of my passions is I work with one of the largest maritime schools in the United States. It's got the largest program for veterans and disabled sailors and rowers.
I actually make time always for platform tennis or paddle. If any of you guys have seen or played that, it's addicting and it's a lot of fun.
I actually teach in my spare time, which I really enjoy. Crazy, I make jewelry. I spend a lot of time with friends and travel quite a bit as well.
I jump out of planes. I have a black belt in karate, and I am starting an interior decorating company.
I guess the short answer is I do what my wife tells me, but and I'll give you a goody two-shoes answer. I got interested in my great uncle, who died in World War I, and it's interesting where your passion will take you, because the more I read about him, the more interested I got. And now I'm in the process of writing a book about him. And I've never done this before in my life. It's going to be horrible, but but I feel like I owe it to him, and I'm getting a lot of joy out of it. And it's better than listening to my wife.
Somebody ask one more question? Oh, somebody's going to have one.
We were in Greece recently. We went to the Oracle of Delphi, right? And now the modern thinking is that she may have been high on stuff. Her message is consult silence.
Not a famous thinker, but I have this on my wall at home. She designed a life she loved.
Actually, I just read the Steve Jobs book, and I just remember his speech that he gave. It was a commencement speech, and one of the things that really always kind of means something to me is stay hungry and continue to do things that push you, because I think that the second you become complacent, life is not all that exciting.
I'm just gonna have to quote my mother, who told me all the time, do as I say, not as I do.
And dispelling more motherly advice, you put yourself in other people's shoes.
Before we adjourn, a couple of things. I'd like all of the other members of the Board of Visitors not on stage to please stand up so you can be recognized.